Hello everyone and welcome back to another installment from our series Straight from the Horse's Mouth. Annual reporting is important for every organisation. As sustainability becomes a focus for more and more companies, the thinking around what a report should include evolves. Integrated reporting is a framework that reports on business value and focuses on outcomes. It shows how capitals, people, relationships, knowledge, systems, financial resources, and the natural environment together create value for business. Here's a sneak preview.
So if we look at what's happening in the global markets too, there's a lot of transformation happening. So investors increasingly want to know about ethical as well as environmental credentials. If we look at the integrated reporting framework, just kind of a main frame of reference, and if we think about it from an integrated thinking point of view, which is a really important precursor to integrated reporting, it's the active consideration by an organisation of the relationships between its various operating and functioning units and the capitals that they use or they affect. So impact of integrated reporting on business, for me, it delivers better connectivity between people, processes and systems, which provides a much clearer insight in how that value piece is created.
The second aim was to show impact against our capitals, and this is very much about how we create value and how we make sure we preserve it as well, not have it eroded. And so we very much structured our report so we could show this against each of our capitals.
This webinar will explain integrated reporting, giving particular examples from Lisa Martin's work and her insights from leading the judging of integrated reporting internationally. Lisa will be joined by Kate Thompson, thinkstep-anz's Head of Communications, who will talk about growth, thinkstep-anz's first integrated report, and advise you on the next steps you can take. With that, let's get started.
Welcome. It's great to have you here for the first thinkstep-anz webinar of the year. I'd just like to say first, for those of you in New Zealand and those of you who are joining from around the world who've probably heard the news, it's been a really, really hard time for our little country over the last couple of weeks actually. So anybody who's been affected, our thoughts are with you. And please reach out for the help that is available. But yeah, pretty hard time for our country. My name's Kate Thompson. I'm the Head of Communications at thinkstep-anz. I'm your host for today. We call these webinars our Insights from Experts in just 30 minutes, and that's what it will be. Today, we're very privileged to be joined by Lisa Martin, who's an absolute guru on integrated reporting. So you've come to the right place to learn how it should be done properly. And I'll introduce Lisa in a bit more detail shortly. It's great to have such a big audience here today. For those of you who don't know us at thinkstep-anz, we're a trans-Tasman sustainability firm. We specialise in a really huge range of services now, life cycle assessment, carbon footprinting, strategy for sustainability, procurement, and the one I really do need to mention, which is our plain English communications and reporting, just sort of get a plug in there. We've been doing this work in Australia and New Zealand for about 15 years now. It's great to have Lisa with us today. This is the guru of integrated reporting for New Zealand and I suspect Australia as well. Lisa is the Managing Director of Sustains, which is a sustainability firm which focuses on professional services, strategic risk, business sustainability, procurement and supply chain. Don't think there's a great deal that Lisa doesn't know about integrated reporting. The thing I admire most was when she was at Sanford, New Zealand in an executive role. It's where she actually set up, designed, delivered, got the team to develop integrated reporting. And I remember the Sanford report being sort of the gold standard, the one we all wanted to read to find out how to do this properly. The other thing I should mention is that Lisa does a lot of judging, so she knows what to look for in these reports, and she'll talk about that a little bit soon. So she knows her stuff. So now let's move on. Lisa, thank you very much for joining us. Let's head into your presentation. We have about 10 minutes with Lisa, about 10 minutes with me, and then we'll do questions.
So good afternoon, everybody. It's great to see so many of you on this virtual webinar today. Privileged to be here and share some insights from my experience, as Kate said, and that includes designing, delivering and judging integrated reports across Asia Pacific. So I want to start off today with a little bit of scene setting to help build a shared understanding of value creation for business, what we mean by that, what some of the key drivers and opportunities are, and how that's evolved to where we are today. Then I'll go on to explain a little bit about what integrated thinking and reporting is and highlight some of the key building blocks that are important in there. And then I'll share some of the positive impacts on business that I've experienced from the work that I've done firsthand, and also some key insights that I thought I might like to leave you with. So we will rattle through it reasonably quickly just because of the 10-minute requirement, if I can get my slides to to change. There you go. Sorry, a bit slow. So in a broad context, these are some of the stories that over the last couple of years, we're all aware of. So the extreme weather event, which is we're facing right now, the mandatory reporting, climate disclosure standards, the cost of living crisis, growth in ESG reporting, plastics in the environment, New Zealand's water quality. And these are, trans-Tasman issues as well, a lot of these. But these sort of stories do impact on how we see the world, but also what we do in response as individuals and also as business. I think one of the things, as a business, it is an increasingly challenging and complex economic environment that we're operating in. So there's a lot of things sort of, growing socio-economic issues, and there's environmental disruption that we all know about. And there's a lot of uncertainty, I think it's fair to say. So in that sort of environment, it is quite hard for businesses to make short-term returns while still sustaining sort of that long-term growth piece as well. So looking out. So issues like climate change, diversity and inclusion, whether it's labour practices, whether it's cyber risk, can increase or erode a business's value. And so drivers for business success are now very much wider than purely commercial, much more on the ethical side as well as things. So thinking about it from that point of view, if I take a quote here from Larry Fink, his view is to prosper over time, every company doesn't just have to deliver financial performance, but also make a positive contribution to society. So companies must benefit all of their stakeholders. So it might be shareholders, your employees, your consumers, your communities where you operate. Really important sort of holistic notion, I think you could say there. And then if you put that in a bit of context, what makes up the market value of a company has seen a massive shift in the last 45 or so years. So if you look at this graph here, the gold colouring shows the proportion of value that's made up from intangible assets versus those that are tangible. So in 1975, that was just 17%. And then if you go to 2020, it's actually 90%. So in effect, the relative proportion of value that's attributed to tangible and intangible is basically flipped on its head. So when we talk about tangible, it's the sort of physical assets that we know about, the machinery, current assets like inventory. And then the intangibles is much more about the results of human intellect and work. So it's not something that's physical in nature. It's more the corporate intellectual property. It's more the goodwill. It's more the brand recognition. So what I want to do and talk about today is how integrated thinking and reporting helps us really to move the gap or change the information gap between those tangibles and intangibles effectively. So if we look at what's happening in the global markets too, there's a lot of transformation happening. So investors increasingly want to know about ethical as well as environmental credentials. One of the things that's really interesting is that about $4 trillion of inheritance is likely to pass from baby boomers through to millennials in the next 2 or 3 decades. So that will come to a generation that really shown quite a lot of impatience around irresponsible or unsustainable behaviour. So when they shift their investment practices according to their values, you might sort of see some really interesting things happening in terms of economic governance. So it's very much about moving to a new positioning around much more of a holistic focus around ESG. And you're seeing that happen with New Zealand Super and the way they moved away from high carbon stocks. So in 2021, they reduced their exposure to fossil fuel by 100%, for example. And that's really moving away from those companies, investing in those companies which have exposure to high carbon emissions, for example. So just going to this is another example. So people looking at leadership from brands and businesses. I'll just carry on with that one. But it's the same kind of theme where it is sort of coming increasingly important to civil society out there. Apologies, I can't actually get my slide to move. Oh, there you go. So I'm going to talk now about integrated reporting and really cut to the chase on this one. Apologies because we are a bit slower because of the slide thing. So if we look at the integrated reporting framework, just kind of a main frame of reference, and if we think about it from an integrated thinking point of view, which is a really important precursor to integrated reporting, it's the active consideration by an organisation of the relationships between its various operating and functioning units and the capitals that they use or they affect. So I'll elaborate a bit more on what I mean by capitals, but essentially that integrated reporting piece focuses on the ability for the organisation then to create value over time. So in simple terms, it's about thinking holistically. It's about the resources and relationships that the organisation uses or affects, the dependencies and the trade-offs that exist between them as value is created. In applying that mindset, then the organisation views itself as part of a bigger system. So it's shaped by the quality, the availability and the cost of resources, for example, as well as evolving regulations, industry norms and stakeholder expectations, really. So just getting into the IR framework itself then, we use that as our main frame of reference, and there's a number of aspects to it. So it establishes the fundamental concepts of integrated reporting. It also sets out the guiding principles and the content elements. And the content elements are really what kind of governs what's the core business information disclosures that need to be in an integrated report. And the main things there are the business model, the strategy, how resources are allocated, what performance is, and what governance applies. So it's very principles-based, so not very prescriptive, but sets out the overall frame of reference. It's designed to be used by any type of business. It's predominantly originally intended for private sector, but you can apply the framework across any kind of, from a not-for-profit to private or public sector, and of all different sizes, because it is principles-based, as I say. And one of the things that's really important around integrated reporting, the value creation piece is interesting because it doesn't really set the quality of an organisation's strategy or its level of performance, but it kind of gives some interesting sort of guidance in there. So I'm just going to talk now about the capitals. So there, the integrated report itself provides a bit of insight around the resources and relationships used or affected by the organisation, and then the framework itself refers to them as the capitals. So capitals are really the stocks of value that the organisation's business model depends on as inputs, and they can be increased, decreased, or transformed over time. There's quite a mix. So you can see financial, manufactured, intellectual, human, social relationship in there. So this diagram, I'm not a huge fan of it, but it sits in the integrated reporting framework, and what it does is it's useful in showing the connectivity between those content elements that I talked about before that are the key overriding aspects that need to be an integrated report, and also those capitals that I talked about, the 6 capitals, and also the outcomes. So if you start from the outer bit of that diagram, that external environment piece, that includes economic conditions, technological change, societal issues, and so forth. And that sets the context within which the organisation operates. And then in the middle there, you've got the purpose, mission, and vision, which set the overall intention. So then at the core of that business model, it draws on the various capitals and the inputs. Then they feed through its business activities, convert them to outputs, so your products, your services, your byproducts, your waste, whatever it might be. And then the organisation's activities and outputs then lead to the final outcomes there, which is effectively the effects on the capitals themselves. So just going to the next slide, there's some key building blocks here. So there's capital expansion, which I've just mentioned. There's defining value creation. And just on that note, it might be profitability. It might be positive supplier relationships. It might be having a lower environmental impact. It might be having engaged employees. All of those are a measure of value that extends beyond the traditional commercial considerations that would have been in a traditional financial report, for example. And then looking to the future is the other really important point. So integrated reporting really requires that forward-looking mindset, and that's about defining short, medium and long-term targets and having associated management and governance bits in place. The integrated reporting and the integrated thinking is about the whole process that kind of underpins it. And I'm just going to finish off with some really key elements that sort of resonate with me. So impact of integrated reporting on business. For me, it delivers better connectivity between people, processes and systems, which provides a much clearer insight in how that value piece is created. Through an integrated or more strategic long-term focus, it also helps to ensure that business strategies are tailored to create short, medium and long-term value. The actual process of going through integrated thinking and reporting does help to support management information. It means that it's more integrated, it's more robust, decision-making happens, and that better governance generally, extending beyond that financial piece and just looking at the short-term returns, which historically may have been much more the case. It does provide a catalyst, in my experience, for behavioural change in terms of breaking down internal silos and supporting longer-term thinking, because you historically, you traditionally work as a group in that forum. The external value focus is really interesting because it looks beyond the boundaries of the organisation. It looks at external trends, risks, opportunities, and it adds a lot of depth to how value is created and destroyed as well, to be honest. Enhanced transparency is really important. It helps to build stakeholder trust over time by being more transparent, and can provide a really good foundation for collaboration. And then it tends to drive a much better dialogue also with stakeholders. So opens up new opportunities around things like collaboration, innovation, and driving value creation. So just want to finish on a last slide here, which really is just some of the key insights that I would take. Without doubt, it is more difficult to pull it off in terms of capturing both financial and non-financial considerations into the business strategy and how you report. But I really have found that it does help to bring a good vision to life, and it does provide a framework for authentic, transparent, and robust reporting if done well. It's a really good communication resource, and I know Kate will touch on this in her presentation. It has much broader appeal than a traditional financial report. And if I think back to Sanford, for example, as Kate mentioned, it definitely helped to attract and retain new talent, without a doubt. Also opened up opportunities in areas like sustainable financing and so forth out of the back of having good, rigorous reporting. It does focus on what matters most, but to do that, it's really important that you have really good stakeholder engagement. Not had time to talk about that today, but that is a really critical foundational piece for the report. It does open up some new opportunities, and gives you a much more balanced view of value, performance, and reputation, without a doubt. So just to finish off then, I want to leave you the message, from my perspective, that through integrated thinking and reporting, we've got many opportunities to realise authentic, meaningful value creation. And now I'm going to hand over to Kate, who shares some insights from ThinkStep's experience in delivering their first integrated report. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Well, you don't do an integrated report without learning a few things, and I think Lisa would say that as well. The things I want to touch on today that I think would be useful to the audience here is, first of all, the importance of understanding your audience and aims. And I think Lisa's touched on how integrated reporting can help you with quite a lot of different business aims. Then I'm going to quickly talk about how capitals are linked, then talk about including the good and the bad. It's about being transparent, and then the importance of being concise. This thing's got to be readable, right? Now, looking first at our audiences and aims, we had several aims with our report. Our first was to hold ourselves accountable. There's nothing like getting something on a piece of paper with what you'll see there, some targets, some outputs, some outcomes, to make people really focus and have those conversations which Lisa was talking about. So the first one was holding ourselves accountable. So you'll see this page next to each of our capitals in our report. I should just stress we only used 5 capitals. We didn't use manufacturing because we don't really have plant, equipment, factories, that sort of thing. And that's fine. As Lisa said, we're talking principles here. You don't have to follow anything slavishly if it doesn't work for your business. So you'll see there, we've called it our people, not human capital. It's what works for your business. The second aim was to show impact against our capitals. And this is very much about how we create value and how we make sure we preserve it as well, not have it eroded. And so we very much structured our report so we could show this against each of our capitals. Our third aim was to build relationships, and Lisa's touched on this as well, about the collaboration piece that this encourages. So if you see the page in the top left-hand corner, this is very much about our team. That's our team there. You'll see little icons showing the industries we work in. You'll see the little critters that helped us through lockdown. This was done over lockdowns. And that's my SPCA cat, Momo, in the top right-hand corner. The second page on the right, this one is about our clients, so obviously really important to our business. So this was a case study about Comvita, the honey products producer. And down below, you'll see this again was talking about partners and partnerships. This is a list of our team members and the organisations that we're members of and contribute to. So there we are. This is some information about the relationships piece, because you don't build value by yourself. Now, our fourth aim was about building our brand, and that's fine that your report is a branding exercise as well. It can be, there's no problem with that. What we wanted to show as thinkstep-anz was that we have the technical expertise. So that's the first one, spotlight on hidden emissions in Australia's built environment. That's our smart embodied carbon technical experts. Second thing we wanted to show was that we've actually got business know-how as well. Top right-hand corner, we showed all the industries that our different team members have worked in, and that's quite a few. Bottom left-hand corner, we wanted to show that we're ambitious for ourselves and for our clients, and generally for the world of sustainability. We hold ourselves accountable. And on the bottom right-hand corner, we also wanted to show that we're approachable. So we've got a couple of profiles of team members, like Andrea, who's one of our green building experts in Australia. And you can put that sort of content in. It's really relevant, builds your brand, and it's actually very relevant to just making someone want to read your report in the first place. Then the second one I wanted to talk about is how your capitals are linked, and this is really key to your reporting. So just with an example here, we do quite a lot of work like these free webinars, for example, sharing our skills and knowledge, because that's really important to our business. We do conference presentations, we offer free case studies, we're members of working groups and so on. Now, these are our 5 capitals here, and what we showed within the report, sorry, David, just one, our 5 capitals here. What we showed here was how doing things like today's free webinar, obviously it builds our skills, we have to get ready to do it, we learn things along the way. We build our natural capital as well, because the work we do does help the environment. The next one along is our partnerships. Obviously, we're building partnerships today, including with Lisa. It's great to have her back. The one in the bottom corner is our people. This is very much about building their skills, their knowledge, wanting people to come and work with us and stay with us. And the last one, which isn't insignificant, is obviously the money, but you don't get there without doing the other ones as well. So this is an example for our what we call our thought leadership. And another quick example is our case studies. This is one we did for Aquaculture New Zealand. It's a life cycle assessment. And you'll see in the brown box down the right-hand side, these are the capitals that this particular work helped build. So obviously we got paid for it. Our clients are good like this. But we also built partnerships, not just with the Aquaculture New Zealand Association, but also with all the companies within the industry. We gain skills and knowledge, as we do on every single piece of work we do. And the work we've done is actually helping the aquaculture industry preserve the environment, protect the environment, those sorts of things. Now, the good and the bad, you can't really hide from it in integrated reporting. And it's probably good because we learn as much from what we don't do so well as what we do well. So you'll see some content in here about what we did do well and that we're very proud of. Then you'll also see what we call it the bad, maybe it's the indifferent, the challenges and the risks and how we're managing them. This is how you really learn stuff. So if you look under, say, our people piece, under the people capital, it's really hard to get capable staff at the moment. That is one of our challenges, but there are things we can do about that. So that's what we talk about in managing our risks. Partnerships are really important to us. We need to maintain them. There are things we can do. So integrated reporting has forced us to really look at what we're doing there. Then the last one I wanted to talk about is keeping things concise. We want people to read this. The first thing I say in any communications is less is more. Be ruthless. It's really hard. It's like cutting your own arm off, having to cut a page out of an integrated report. But the way we did it, we started with what we call our materiality assessment, and you'll see it here. We looked at really what mattered to us most, and that's where we focus in the report. We use plain English writing techniques, and we were actually thrilled to be recognised with an award for this from Plain Language New Zealand. Plain English writing, which is things like these great infographics that our creative team do. It's just simple language that non-technical audiences can actually understand. I call it dinner table language. If you wouldn't say it at the dinner table, don't put it in your report. We used infographics and we used strong design, which I think really helped as well. So that's just a quick summary of things that worked for us. I'm very happy to take questions here, and we're very happy to talk about things afterwards as well. I've got a couple of questions in here. I'm just checking. One for you, Lisa, from Sally. Hello, Sally. Haven't seen you for a while. How did you embed integrated thinking at Sanford so it was more than a reporting exercise? She'd be interested in hearing more about the behaviour chains and breaking down silos that you mentioned.
Sally worked with me at Sanford, so has some insights into both the challenges and opportunities in this space for sure. But for me, it's really about connecting with relevant individuals and parts of the business that have a role to play both in that integrated thinking space and ultimately the integrated reporting. So it's bringing them on the journey from the outset, so ensuring that they have an opportunity to be part of the co-development and co-preparation, if you like, that they have a role to play around the sort of data and ownership that might come with it, and the governance piece as well. So essentially, and what it does is it opens doors to have those conversations that you might not otherwise have, and to look at the business sort of on a really quite holistic basis. And how the various component parts work together. So I was very keen on making sure that throughout the process that we circled back, and that those opportunities to be part of the process came through. And it was a journey. Like, you don't get it right from the outset. It's a big sort of complex sort of organisation, but that was how I approached it. And it does help to break down silos in the sense that you are working. And I suppose we had developed up a sustainability strategy and business excellence framework that was quite holistic. And that really helped as well in terms of understanding the connections and breaking it down. Yeah. So I hope that answers it, but happy to come back for more.
Thanks, Lisa. Another one, I'm going to combine two questions because they're both asking similar things and they're both really good questions, reporting questions very much. So how does integrated reporting link in, I suppose, with climate-related disclosures, TCFD, and Corinne has also said with New Zealand's CRD and other international incoming mandatory reporting?
It's a complex environment. So, like the whole reporting framework space is sort of massive. My argument would be is the TCFD is essentially a subset of an integrated report. It can be a standalone document, or it can be embedded in that overall integrated report. It follows some of the same disciplines around having metrics and targets, having robust risk management, having good governance in place. All of those elements are components that you would need to do to have a good, effective, integrated thinking approach and integrated report. So I see them very much interrelated. In terms of, and there's a lot of sustainability metrics and ESG frameworks that exist in the mix there as well. Some of them are industry specific, some of the SASB ones, others are more broad. So I think it's essentially, for me, it's about mapping out which one's the most relevant. And obviously TCFD with that mandatory lens is fairly topical at the moment for at least 200 organisations in New Zealand and more widely. So I'm not sure if that answers your question well enough, but essentially they are quite interrelated, and TCFD I would see as a subset.
We actually included our TCFD report in our integrated report because, as Lisa said, a lot of it's the same thinking. What are your risks? How are you going to manage them? And you're not just managing them on one front, you're actually managing them for all your capitals, not just to not destroy a building. It's got people implications and financial implications and everything else as well. So I would recommend that you put it in.
Well, that's right. And I think as well, if you want to take that real integrated thinking approach, then, you don't necessarily want things to be standalone. There's cases to be had for why you might do it as a standalone for a particular audience or particular application, and you might choose to do that if you don't have an integrated report per se. But over time, it can be a lot easier to actually bring the things together in tandem, to be honest.
Are there any examples of integrated reports that you recommend people look at? Well, I'd say Sanford.
There are a lot, actually. So if you go onto it's IFRS now, but it was the IIRC, so that's the International Integrated Reporting Council. They do actually have a hub where you can actually go on there and actually have a look around in terms of by industry, different types of integrated report. What I would say is there's a whole diversity because, as I say, they are principles based, and I've judged probably 100 or more reports, and they are quite diverse depending on whether you're a Petronas Corporation and you're adhering to the Malaysian regulatory requirements, or whether you're a small not-for-profit, but a lot of the same principles can still apply. But that would be the place that I would go to as a good example. The other thing you can do is look at reports that have actually won international awards. Sometimes that's a useful frame of reference. Last year, for example, with the ARA, it was the CPA Australia, but it was more around having adhered to the principles of the integrated reporting framework and the way that they've framed it up. So that may or may not be a relevant example depending what industry you're looking at, but definitely that hub is a good starting place to have a look at some best practice examples for sure.
We'll send a link out to that when we summarise all this. We've got quite a few more questions, which is terrific, but we won't be able to get through them today. We do have your names though, so we will be back in touch and get you answers So as I said, it's a quick 30-minute whistle through. I'm sure you've gained a lot from Lisa today and what she's been talking about. Thank you very, very much to Lisa. We do really appreciate your time. And thank you to everybody who's attended today. It's been great to have you with us. Our next webinar is coming up next week. Please check our website and we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.